we're going with inactive allyship is essentially refusing to participate in something that is oppressive, right? So if you've got, a boycott is an inactive allyship. Leaving a work environment where you can't reconcile the values. You know, if your company is racist, if it is classist, and you are like, if you feel like your continued involvement is going to be contributing, then withdrawing from that would be inactive allyship.
Inactive allyship.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you. Anyone else? Do you find anything on Google?
Here.
Oh, we were allowed to look at it. A few of them were Googling.
Because I'm a word nerd.
Yes.
So we were debating, in my mind, the idea of inactive allyship can't exist. Because the only way I can think about inactive allyship is somebody that considers themselves as an ally because they feel for the cause. But they don't speak out, they don't do anything beyond feeling, that's from being empathetic.
Yes.
Right? So for me, any kind of allyship, because we're debating whether like a silent partner that just gives money or somebody that just speaks up and doesn't physically act, for me it's still action. Anything that comes out of your body is action. For me, an inactive ally is like when you keep all these things in your body and it doesn't leave that as an action.
That's a good one. Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, do you have your hand up? Okay.
We had a conversation which resulted in rich learning for me. The way Rochelle interpreted inactive allyship was very similar to how Adrian and Shanaz's team, Khalid's team interpreted. I had a different interpretation. Mine was silent allyship, wherein like you're an ally, but you're not vociferous or advocating or creating a ripple effect. Instead, you participate through reflections or stepping aside and giving the space or, the share of attention or acknowledgement. So when we discussed and when Rochelle shared her insights, what the learning I took away from this activity is allyship. Now, for me, I see it as a spectrum with active, silent, inactive, and possibly another stage, so from active allyship, it goes to the other side, which is the polar opposite of active allyship, whatever that is. So my learning is that it sort of transcends these definitions, and now I'm beginning to see it more as a spectrum, and that was what I took away from this.
All right. Great conversation. Thank you all for sharing. And that's why I love to get my group thinking, because new thoughts come in and new ideas come in. When there was in slavery, there was the Underground Railroad. So the people the white people actually, who were helping the blacks escape from their plantations to come through the railroad to Canada, what would you call them?
Allies.
Active.
They were definitely active, right? But they are different, and the spectrum is very important because there are levels of activity that we can be involved in terms of allyship. So how active we are will determine on our own personal values. But I'm hoping by the end of today we'll shift some of that and we'll be able to have a broader conversation on on allyship. Let's take a look at what active allyship is. So it is the acknowledging the gaps in your knowledge. It's something you're doing. I don't know enough about this group. I don't know enough about their issues. I don't know enough about their point of view and their perspective to make a judgment, right? So you start from small and you work your way up. So if I don't know, what should I be doing, right? We talked about agencies earlier. What should I be doing?
Learning.
Exactly, right? That's part of active allyship. Learning about their points of view. Why do they exist? What makes them so important? What makes it so important to them? I could model inclusive behavior. That is active. Right? My level of modeling may be different. Open to sharing aspects of your experiences and values with your colleagues. So I'm now sharing what I learned with my colleagues. That's part of allyship. It's part of being an active ally. So it's not just one thing. I can enrich and expand my network in the workplace and beyond, so I can try to create more, have more influence in my workplace. So I can talk to more people about why I think their point of view is important. Right? So part of the activity I could be doing. I could also commit to invest in my time. I can design programs for inclusivity if I have the platform or I'm in the leadership role to do so. I can thank colleagues who actively contribute to inclusion activities by encouraging them, telling them, I value what you do. It means a lot for me to see that. So there are levels of activity that we can be doing for active allyship. And most people sit back and say, well, I don't really know how to be an ally. But really, it's expensive on what we can do, right? And I'm sure if I give you pen and paper, you can come up with a lot more than this. This is just the beginning, right? What we're talking about here, which is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more we can do in terms of allyship. It includes trust building. Building trust between myself, those I have influence over, and trust with the marginalized group. That's another aspect of allyship. Engaging in discriminative action, non-discriminative action. I think that word should have changed. Critical awareness, looking, not just reading what I see or just looking at everything as face value, but actually critical awareness allows me to say, what am I not seeing? What else? What is behind the surface? Because in organizations where you have leaders saying one thing and doing another, we need more critical awareness. Learning socio-political realities. Understanding the realities of what people are actually facing. Right? When I read about residential school, I should actually ask myself, what else am I not seeing in the newspaper article? What are some of the actual stories? What does the generational traumas look like? What are some of the outcomes? So it's that sense of accountability, that responsibility for me to be accountable to myself, to learn, go outside my comfort zone, to truly understand. Communicating and dissemination of information, not just to the people I know, but getting to know more people that I can share. Maybe I take something to church. Maybe I go to a networking group and I learn new people. I learn about new groups that I could join, where I could have influence. Maybe I sit on a board. A board that needs diversity. Do you know many boards right now? I forgot the stats, but most of the influential board lack people with skin color like me. Right? And these are the places where decisions are made and how we live our life and how our society is run. and there's no representation. Active allyship says, I'm going to ask on my board, I'm going to sit on the board I sit and I'm going to ask, what are we doing to recruit more visible minority members to our board executive? It's part of active allyship. So it's not just one thing, right? Activities such as listening to understand the experiences of those marginalized people. Not just saying, oh, here they go again, oh, what's up stories, oh, right? We need to listen to ourselves. Understand, normalizing, calling out of inappropriate behavior. Some of us are terrified to say to a colleague, you know what? I'm not quite sure how I feel about your interaction with that person. My nephew, I'm from the Caribbean, but my husband is Nigerian. So I've adopted a lot of Nigerian family because, they're a whole tribe. And they come in mass. So right now, our kids are grown up and moved out, but my husband's nephew is living with us. And he came in September, so he's brand new. So he's very observant. Every day he comes home, he's got a story for Auntie Joyce. Auntie Joyce, I went to MPI to get my license, and I noticed something. I'm like, what did you notice? There was a white guy who came in, and he could only speak French or some other language, and the staff was very pleasant to him. She took time, she explained everything. And the next set of people were African. I know they were from Africa. They were not Nigerians. But she was very abrupt with them. She did not want to have anything to do with this sub-story. She was like, this is what you need to do. And she was off. He said, there was quite a disparity in the way she spoke to them versus the way she spoke to him. And I said, oh, you noticed? He said, yes. Because you see what happens, for those of us who were not born in Canada, we are normal people where we come from. But when we come to Canada, we become Black or Asian or Hispanic or something. We have to take on another title. So until 19 years old, I was Joyce. And then I decided to come to Canada for university, and I became a Black woman. My identity changed. And then I decided to have my own business. Well, have mercy. I was the only Black entrepreneur in the room. I remember when I went to my first Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce meeting. It's only old white men with suits and ties. I was like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't go in there. Right? And so things have changed, of course. It has become far more inclusive. The reality is, we are witnessing situations every day. So the colleague of that woman at MPI, and because of what I do, people tell me a lot of stuff at work. When they go into their organization that they would normally share with them. I wouldn't know what to say, Joyce. What would I say? Speak for yourself. Don't speak about them. So you know what? I was noticing your interaction with that couple, and it kind of made me feel yucky. I don't know. Maybe I would have handled it differently. I don't know. Felt like maybe you weren't. Maybe they didn't feel heard, or maybe they might have felt dismissed. I don't know. Create curiosity for that person. You don't have to accuse them of anything. You just say what you feel, what you observe. I don't know, but maybe we should pay attention next time. Something about that interaction didn't feel good to me. And I think those kinds of ways are important. Sponsorship. Oh, it's such an important opportunity. Creating space for and amplifying underrepresented voices. And I've had many people say to me, Joyce, are we supposed to give up our roles? am I supposed to give up my job so we can become more inclusive? I'm like, no. I remember when my husband so my husband just retired 27 years as a police officer. But when he started at Winnipeg Police Service, I remember I was doing a second degree, and one of my classwork mates said, oh, he got in because he was black. I was like, really? How did you come to that idea? And there was, at that time, that was 27 years ago, there was the assumption that black people and people from marginalized groups were getting into jobs just to fill quotas. And I started to ask, and I think it came up earlier, what is our responsibility when people ask those or make those comments? We can become angry, we can become belligerent, we can become shameful, or we can see it as an opportunity to teach. So I said to that colleague, I said, well, tell me a little bit about why you think that. Well, you know, my boyfriend and my brother applied, and I know so many guys who applied, and they're born here, and they didn't get in. I said, so it sounds like they're competing with themselves, right? The competition is from within the white males. They're competing among themselves. Did you know my husband had 2 degrees? I said, she's like, oh, no. Well, maybe he didn't get in because of his skin color. Maybe he got in because of his merit. And often what happens is we hear these comments and we forget that we should be active allies. And being an active ally means maybe there is more to it. Maybe that is not the reason. And sometimes it's questioning somebody's thoughts, creating curiosity for them, not fighting with them. And if you feel yourself falling asleep, don't forget to wriggle your ankles. But we're going to take a break in about 10 minutes, right? I think. Is it? What time is break? At 3. At 3. Oh, at 3. Well, feel free to walk around the room if you're falling asleep. Okay. And there is sponsoring and mentoring underrepresented individuals. And I'll talk later about the opportunities for sponsorship and some innovative ways that we can sponsor, right? A sponsor is working with just one person, or you're working with an organization. So you can sponsor a person, you can mentor a person, a single person. Every opportunity that I've gotten and every large contract that I've gotten, and it's based on my merit, but there were times where I was sponsored in my career. When I started my business 28 years ago, I didn't have a coach or a mentor, but I did have sponsors. I did have people who say, you are investing in yourself and I want to invest in you. So find ways to sponsor and mentor. And of course, we always should practice inclusive language. Another opportunity is to be transparent with our compensation as a leader. Very important in organizations. Active allyship. It's very important. What is the compensation? Pay equity. Women are still earning less than men. Like really? It's 2024. What are we doing? Right? Making metrics around diversity, equity, and inclusion visible. Not just hiring a few people and putting them in good spots where people can see, right? I mean, going into the banks now, you see a lot of tellers that look like us, right? Those of us who are visible minority. But when you go to the back office, what do you see? They're all out front, visible, right? So it's not just what's visible, but also inclusion from all levels. Exploring alternative recruitment approaches. I am so tired of people telling me, oh Joyce, we can't find educated people of color to put in leadership roles. I'm like, really? Where did you? I know as a black person, black people are very educated. I know my East Indian brothers and sisters, my my Asian colleagues, very educated. Most racialized groups know that education, our families, our parents, our mothers have drummed it into our heads. You have to be educated, right? So that is not the truth. But what has happened when there is a position, what do? I ask my friend, hey, what's your name? Anastasia, who do you know? We have a job. Do you have anybody you know who can fill that position? Right? So Anastasia goes to her network and she recommends them for the job. And then what do I say? Oh, we can't find qualified people. Where are you posting the job? Who knows? It's available. How do underrepresented people get to know about it? We need to be creative. Have you called the pastor of one of the local churches and say, hey, how many diverse professionals do you have? We have a job posting. No, we don't network. We just feel that they should come to us. Well, they don't know you. If you want to get the educated professionals from diverse groups, you have to do some legwork. You have to be creative when you're posting the jobs and who you're telling about it. And when your friend or your colleague tells you, oh yeah, Sally would be a good fit, ask, what is Sally's qualifications? Do you know how many times I've gone into places and they've told me, and I said, okay, so tell me about you. Well, usually we just tell, the staff we're looking for someone. And so they just tell their colleagues in their network, and that's how we hire. And they tell me, Joyce, we can't find people of visible minority backgrounds. Well, I guess if they're not there, they won't know. Assigning diversity and inclusion accountability to everyone at every level of the organization. This is not something that just the leaders should be doing. The leaders should model it and create the systems for the follow through, but every level, your team leads, your employees, starting from your reception all the way up, everyone should have that accountability. Visibly championing allyship with top leadership. Yeah, that means checking in with those leaders those who lead or in leadership roles and asking them, hey, how are you doing with allyship in your organization? Who are you asking? Who are you promoting? Who are you sponsoring for leadership roles in your organization? Sometimes we don't ask the right questions to our friends, so nothing changed because groupthink has set in. Groupthink is where we all think the same and we all behave the same because nobody questions each other's behavior. We all have the same mindset. We all have the same thought. So distinctions: ally, advocate, accomplice. Allies works to end oppression, but is not, even if they're not a target of it, right? Advocate is a person who publicly supports a change or policy that oppresses. And then an accomplice is someone who supports the target of oppression when they are going out on a limb. So I'm going to put myself between you and the bullet. The white guys who walked down with Martin Luther King Jr., they put themselves out on the limb, right? So we have to ask ourselves, where do we want to stand? Where do we want to be on that spectrum? Right? Did you have a question?
No, I just noticed that this showing the spectrum.
Oh, okay. Where do we want to be on that spectrum? And you don't have to stick to one. You can move in different stages, different phases, different causes. And as the opportunity comes. But it's something you have to really want to do. It's a commitment to change. Because if we do not commit to it, we will not change the system. You see, often I have people who say to me, Joyce, it is such a racist system. You know, this system, you know, it's just so tough. I'm like, it's a darn good system. That's what systems are. It stays, it is consistent, it replicates itself. What we need to do is learn how to work the system. Systemic racism is there because the systems were built by people, the same people of the same race, the same idea, the same thoughts. That's who built the system. I can't blame the system. The system is there. What I need to understand is how to shift my mindset so that I can make changes within the system. Because we don't want to dismantle the system. The system itself is good because it's staying. All we want to do is change how it operates. Who gets in, who stays out, who's excluded. And we do that by looking at the policies, the procedures. We do that by getting into, because I have been in countries where there are no systems. Honey, you want to be where there is a system. Trust me. If you've never lived in somewhere that doesn't have a system, then you don't understand what a good system is. It is designed to do exactly what it's doing. What we need to do is to change the way we operate, the way we think, the way we act, so we can make the system work for us. That's why we need to be allies and advocates and accomplices. Because we are not in the system, we don't have the power to change the system. Our allies, our advocates, and our accomplices are the ones who need to understand the exclusivity of the system. You don't want to change out the baby with the bathwater. We want to keep the baby, we want to throw away the bathwater. Because I don't want to live in any country without a system. Most immigrants come here because they want a system that's consistent, that we can understand, we know what's going to happen, it's predictable. We just need different mindsets, we need different policies and protocols and procedures within the system. And when we shift, we will take the good part of the system and make it work for everyone. Does that make sense? If you've immigrated from somewhere without a system, you understand what I'm talking about, right? Right? Or you know someone who has, right? We know systems are designed to work and to support the parts, but who is in the system matters, right? It's the mindset of the people in the system that will shift the system for it to be more inclusive. And that's why allies, advocates, and accomplices are important and powerful. Hey, if it wasn't for ally, accomplices, and advocates, slavery would still be going on. I wouldn't be here. I would be scrubbing somebody's floor or being beaten or something, right? That's why we need allies, advocates, and accomplices. And your job is a very important one. Darakash said, while allyship often involves showing up in the moment to disrupt dynamics of inequity or discrimination, advocacy seeks to proactively change the systemic dynamics that create inequitable opportunities in the workplace. So those moments occur far less often. Does that help you understand how important it is to have that spectrum? We want the system to work for everyone. We have a good system. It just needs our teachers to be paid, right? We want our doctors to be paid. We want our streets to be plowed. We want, hey, if I'm going in this pothole, I want to be able to call 311 and complain. And I think that's sometimes the challenge. We don't understand and value the system. Because I went to do something the other day and someone said, oh, if you pay cash, you don't have to pay taxes. I said, what? I want to pay tax, please. Let me pay my tax. Because I want to be able to complain when the premier doesn't do what he does. Or the city doesn't plow the street. I want to be able to call 311. Let me pay my tax. Because that maintains the system. I want my children and my grandchildren to have an education system. Yeah, there's issues in there and they're doing monkey-nuts in school, but the system, we need good people in the system to fix things. Things work. I don't want to be scared when I go to vote. I don't want to have to be worried, right? The system is good. We just need new mindset, new people, new attitude, a different level of awareness, so the system operates more inclusively. Now we have a conversation. Allyship in action. Proactively changing the systemic dynamics that create inequitable opportunities so those occur far less often in the workplace. What would that look like? That is your query. That's what you're going to be talking about in your groups. What would that look like? That's you got 5 minutes at your table. Conversation time.
This is pause. Once it's red, okay. So you press those little those two lines. Mm-hmm. All right, gotcha.
Wait, do you want it playing now or do you
no.
want it paused?
That's like
Paused.
allyship.
Yeah.
About when you recognize ill will or discrimination. And part of what I did in my work, I worked for someone actually worked for Red River College. At one time, I was the respectful workplace officer to look at respect within the entire college for staff and students, and looking at how people interpret respect and how they behave within the organization. And that really helps us to get a sense of how important it is to do that. Recognizing that when one person speaks up in the meeting and if the other person is shushed or their voice isn't heard, that we're not just harming that person, but we're harming all of ourselves, because they could have actually have the idea that would change our world and we just shushed it, right? Because we think that they shouldn't know enough to teach us, and we can learn from everyone. So advocacy is that proactive acting to build those relationships across groups, drive positive structural change in a systemic issue, because these are the things that really matter. I had this young person approach me, and he was working for a wonderful city, and left at what I thought was a good job. I was like, why are you leaving? He's like, because they're not ready to promote me as a black man. I have been here for 9 years, and people coming after me, and they moved up, and I know more than them. I do the work, and they got into leadership role, so I've moved on. And you're like, this is 2023, 2024, this is still happening? It's still happening. It's happening in the organizations, the systems where we're paying taxes. It really frustrates me when I hear my tax dollars are being misused that way. But it's happening in federal, provincial, municipal governments. We humans are, I think we actually lean to wanting to be with people that are like us, people who share our thoughts and our values, because our brain is lazy. We don't want to grow and learn. It's more comfortable being with people who are like us, who gets our jokes, who sees things the way we do. We don't have to explain ourselves, so we just stay lazy and comfortable. That's the human nature. But we are in a big, beautiful world where we are able to interact with others, learn about their culture, learn about their values, explain those. Sometimes, when somebody asks you why you do something, it gets you thinking. Maybe it's time to stop doing that nonsense. Yeah, it's time to get out of your comfort zone. Otherwise, we stay stuck, we stay dull, doing the same thing over and over again. So allyship, advocacy, envisions and comments to greater systemic changes that would mean the starting line of more equitable workplace opportunities for everyone. Everyone has, if you can do the job, why am I promoting Bob and then Bob has to come to you to ask you how to do it? Like, what am I doing? It's not done. Like, what am I saying to your self-esteem as a person? You don't matter. You're not important. These are the people in the system. It's not the system that's doing it. When we grow up with the system, it's not the system, it's the people that are mismanaging the system, misusing the system. So we need to change who is in the mindset of those in the system. We talk a little bit about sponsors, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. They open up opportunities for education, development of people of marginalized group, and all of us can be a sponsor. What on earth was that? Okay. Thank you. I'll just go back there and push my screen because I have no idea where that battery went. Maybe just click the screen, the next one for me. Thank you, my dear. Thank you, Rissa. Let's talk about performance, because this is performance allyship. This is another opportunity for us to talk about performative allyship. We see a lot of that, right? On social media, we see a lot of, even within the diverse communities, have you seen some people pop up who are now diversity experts? And you're like, but there were salespeople last year. How are they now diversity experts? You see them all over the place. They're no diversity expert. I was like, what happened? Did you not like what you were doing before? And I think too, thank you so much, my darling. I think to the point this morning when somebody on the panel, I think it was, somebody on the panel talked about not being an expert but having the lived experience.
Natalie.
That was Natalie, yes. And I think it's important. If you have the lived experience and you have the lived voice, that's okay. But not all of us have expertise in the same area, and that's okay. So performative allyship is people who are saying, I'm an ally, but they only want to put up a picture, or they only want to, when it's made them look good. Right? Leaders who show up and say, we have a very diverse organization. Oh, front staff is diverse. Really? You mean they can't move from the front? Something wrong with the back of the upstairs? Right? They can never move into leadership roles. Thank you, love, for one of the batteries are gone. Did you find it? Oh, yes, please.
Oh, I put the battery back in.
Yeah, it's just the other one is gone, but that's okay. Good. Yes, try this one. Thank you for the backup. I told my husband I needed a backup. Okay. So, am I going backward? Oh, I think we did that already. Oh,
Can I go backwards?
Yeah, I am going backward. Okay, I have to learn this one on the fly. Okay, where have you seen performance allyship? We won't spend time on that because we are going to do break in 5 minutes. Let me run through the opportunities for allyship, because when we come back from the break, we're going to do a couple of other exercises. I've written this down as some opportunities for allyship. And if you're thinking, where can I be an ally? What can I do? Look at issues around social and income and social protection, education. I think there was a statistics I was listening to of children who were raised in single family, or children who doesn't have others reading to them. And we're going to be doing the privilege walk, and it'll give you a little bit more opportunity to recognize unemployment and job insecurity, work and life conditions, children needing help, food insecurity, housing, basic amenities. Some people cannot get people to rent to them because of their race, right? There's a lot of thing about renting your housing to people of indigenous background. I own a building on Henderson Highway, a corporate building, and I was approached by a school for alternative students, and I had a lot of talk with my real estate agent who told me, you cannot bring those people into your building. They will destroy you. Right? So there are a lot of conceived ideas and beliefs, and I could bring anybody into my building who could destroy it. It's not any particular group will do it more than others. Early childhood development, social inclusion and non-discrimination, structural conflict. Oh, we won't even go into conflict. Access to affordable health services. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that because it's very, very important to recognize, and I'm really focused on the health and well-being of people. I love humans. I know that humans was God's most wonderful creation of the planet. And I just love working with people, and when I see the alarming rates of psychological distress and mental health in people of marginalized people, it's frightening because we can make it better. Allyship supports the well-being of marginalized people. If you've ever wondered why you should be an ally, it's because when you're ally, you're using logic and mindset. You're really looking at, you're setting a purpose for yourself. It's a purposeful engagement. You send positive energy to those who are in struggles. You are collaborating, you're building self-esteem, you're empowering others. And that is something you have to think of from it's really a deep thinking, it's a commitment, as I said earlier. You have to build those relationships with yourself because it takes a lot of work internally to be an ally. You have to be okay with yourself. You have to feel like you have enough to give. Some people are not an ally because they feel that they don't have anything to give. And so you have to do the work on yourself so you can help others. Don't wait until you're perfect. You're never ever going to be. But start doing some work on yourself. And while you're being an ally, keep working on yourself because it takes a lot out of you to be an ally and an advocate. So you can't stop working on yourself. Don't give so much that you drop. Take care of you so you can help more people. And that's the whole idea of it. You have to learn to resolve conflict because there's going to be conflict in your families, in your network, your spouse, your people who know you. What are you doing? Right? So you have to learn how to do it. You have to become self-aware of who you are and what you want to do and what's going on around you, not just with yourself, but how awareness and self-awareness. And forgiveness. You have to forgive a lot of ignorance. I didn't say agree, I said forgive. Because forgiveness is a gift to yourself. It's when you say, I am not going to let your action cause me distress. I am not going to hold on and begrudge you for your ignorance. I'm going to free myself emotionally from that so that I can do my best work. I can be the best person I need to be. It's having that sense of belonging to the human race. Knowing that you're human and what you're doing is intrinsically human, and that's what's important. And it can be fun too, right? We make fun out of it. The mental health disparities are great. Depression is 6 times higher in marginalized groups. So shortage of therapists and counselors and professionals that represent marginalized groups is very hard to find. I know I'm part of a national network, and they keep sending mail out, oh, we need more professionals from marginalized. I mean, I am one of the few conflict analysts who's black. And I'm doing this work, right? As a coach, as a conflict analyst, as someone in this field, it's not an area where there are a lot of us doing it. And so it can become this overwhelming, and that's why it's so important to do your own work and care for yourself. There's a lot of difficulty accessing mental health support, and there's a lot of discrimination in healthcare. One of my girlfriends, so I'm now 56, so that was 3 years ago. I tried calling her. She's a dean at one of the big colleges in Ontario, and I tried reaching out to her. I couldn't hear from her, and finally I sent an email to her home, and a few weeks later she said, "Joyce, I had a heart attack." I was like, "What? I had a heart attack." And she talks about how much she worked, overworked, and tried to help everybody, and overworked and overextend herself, and how that had taken its toll on her health. So it's very important to understand the impact of racism on a daily basis, the negative impact on our self-esteem, our life satisfaction, and even on our longevity. Challenges in accessing family physicians and racial discrimination in healthcare is not a new issue. It's ongoing, it's very prevalent in our society, and something we should do something about. And so we talk about the impact of historical trauma in indigenous and all racialized groups. We have legacy of enslavement and segregation, mental health, colonialism, higher unemployment and lower income rates, which limits care access for many people who can't even afford to get a therapist on their own when they are dealing. So these kinds of things are part of the daily lives of marginalized people, and there is something that we can do. So we can do a lot to help. But I'm going to pause now. We're going to go for a break. When we come back, we're going to do privilege walk, and we're going to do some other activities, do some reflections to wrap up the day. So take a break, energize, and I think I have 15 minutes, and then we'll come back. The sponsor, don't sponsor, expect to provide the same sponsorship to each Black woman you meet. It has to be unique to that person. Understand and alleviate the stress of racism and discrimination. It is really stressful to be discriminated against. It changes your brain and it changes who you are. We were not meant, humans were not created to be discriminated against. We were created to live in dignity and respect. Offer mentorship and create inclusive environments wherever you have the power to do so. We need to start moving from awareness to engagement and action. And that's really one of the things I want us to do. Take time to build relationship. Engage personally with marginalized employees in your workplace. Avoid those stereotypes. Recognize intelligence. There is no one race who has monopoly on intelligence. There are intelligence in every race, creed, culture. Encourage them to access mental health support treatment when it's needed. One of the things I know is that many marginalized groups, out of fear and out of low socioeconomic status, many times their responses to mental health is very, very different. And sometimes it could be, it looks like they don't recognize it, but it's a fear mongering. It's all part of that. We cannot solve this problem. It's bigger than us, so we're going to ignore it. But it's not that they don't care, it's just their responses. Because even in mainstream society, we have people who, and families who do not know what to do. So there are many, many stories. In my work as a coach, and so many times I work with employees who are struggling with their relationships at work, in their interpersonal dynamics with their leaders, with their co-workers. So they're sent over to me to coach and learn different interpersonal skills and respectful skills. So I do a lot of training and coaching in small groups and one-on-one. And many times when they come, it's actually sometimes it's undiagnosed mental illness. And what happens, it shows up in the interpersonal dynamics first. This person's kind of off, this person's not behaving well, this person's being rude or being aggressive or being overly loud, or this person has changed. I think we're more aware now of mental health, but we've been doing this work now for the past 10, 15 years. Way before COVID, so we started, and people are becoming more aware that it might be mental health. And so many times employees are disclosing to me that maybe it is a mental health, but they're scared. They're afraid of getting help or getting support. So sometimes you have to coach them into getting the right support. There are many unspoken struggles and taboo in many communities, marginalized communities, maybe because I know in our Black community for sure, there's a lot of almost lack of acknowledgement of mental health or fear of mental health. And it's not because people are necessarily uneducated, it's because historically it's been seen as such an unknown thing that people just tend to have that sense of fear around mental health and mental illness. So we have to remember now that it is not an odd thing anymore, because all of us in this room will have a mental health episode in our lifetime. What is going to differentiate is how intense it is and how long it lasts. That will be the only difference in our episodes. So mine may be more severe than yours, mine may be more long lasting, mine may be a lifelong thing, mine may be just a short episode. So that's something we have to recognize. It's part of our reality because we have the same DNA strands that our forefathers had 100 years ago. And in 1940, the term hurry sickness was coined by a cardiologist because people were starting to have a lot of heart attacks. And he said, oh, it's because of hurry sickness. But that was 1940, 2024. If he had seen social media now and all the smartphones that people have that we're glued to and all the information that we process on a daily basis, you have the same DNA strand they had 100 years ago. And they would go to work in the morning, husband, wife, children, they work, till the soil, they plant what they needed, they come home. In the winter, it was more inside, more relaxed. So we're doing all of that with the same DNA strands. Why wouldn't we fall apart and go and have mental illness, right? It's because we're overtaxing, overstressing, overextending ourselves. So, and many of us do not practice good health and wellness tactics and strategies, like taking care of our spiritual health, or social, or emotional. Statistically, Gallup poll said we should have 6 hours of social interactions a day. And many of us who are working remote or working hybrid, we don't get that on a daily basis. So many of the things there are many factors now that's creating more mental health issues in our lives. So, but if you're dealing with all of that, plus racism, exclusion, and discrimination, is what happens. Double, whammy, right? So your chances of having mental illness is a lot more impactful. What I'm going to do now is get you your table, and we're going to discuss 3 different topics. I'm going to put them up, and I'm going to assign 2 tables for one question. The first one we're going to talk about is, inclusive and harmonizing policies. So one of the things we talk about is the system, right? Our systems need to be. So your 2 groups, your 2 tables are going to talk about this one, inclusive and harmonizing policies. So take a picture of this screen, because this is what you're going to do. In your group, you're going to talk about workplace policies are not just guidelines, they are threads that shape our interactions, define our culture, and set the stage for either division or unity. Hidden within these threads are often subtle, yet pronounced nuances of racial bias, silently influencing our perspectives and actions. Discover how to unravel those and these biases and weave a fabric of inclusivity in your organization. So the action from you is, what are some strategies for transforming your policies into powerful tools for inclusion and harmony? And what are some practical steps to implement inclusive policy framework, turning ideas into impactful actions? So that's what your 2 tables are going to talk about. The next one is going to go to okay, your two tables, we'll talk about that, this one. The inclusive legacy of leadership, pioneering anti-racism transformation in the workplace. The most enduring leadership legacy is the culture you instill and the values you nurture. Today's leaders are standing at the pivotal crossroads with the opportunity to dismantle long-standing legacies of racism and forge a path towards a truly inclusive and equitable workplace. Your activity. How can leaders identify and confront the complex layers of racism and exclusion embedded in workplace practices? How can leaders encourage momentum and commitment to dismantle exclusive practices at work? So take a picture of that, get together, that's what you're going to talk about. Next group. You guys. Do you guys want?
Yeah, we should probably merge with somebody. 'Cause
Yeah,
it
you
just
guys
did it
can
now.
come over here with this group.
Okay.
Yeah, join them, and you're going to take the next one. Unseen barriers. Unseen barriers. Confronting the silent shadows of discrimination in the workplace. Racism and exclusivity don't always raw, often they whisper. These subtle, shadowy forms of discrimination are easy to overlook but devastating in their impact. Remember we talked about intent and impact? They chip away at employees' well-being, achievements, and vitality daily. Recognizing and dismantling these hidden barriers is a crucial battle against workplace racism. Your activity. How can you see the less visible barriers that pervade the workplace, such as microaggressions and unconscious biases? How can you foster open, respectful dialogues that encourage awareness and discourage discriminatory behaviors? So that's your task. So you'll pick one person to share back with us as a group on what you discussed for those two activity points. So that's your team here. You join that, right? So you guys can pull your tables together. You're there, and you guys are there.